All right, let me try to back up and summarize what I've been saying. This is a kind of a foundational orientation, and the difficulty is you have been ruined by 30, 40, 60, 70 years of stuff that you picked up at random, and so you bring a set of glasses that are colored, and I'm trying to take away the colors. Revelation, that we're going to read next time, is not unique. It's singular in the New Testament, though there are apocalyptic tidbits here and there in Paul. Remember when Paul talks about, that the dead will be raised and Jesus will meet you in the air? He's talking about judgment. That's apocalypse. That's apocalyptic. Huh? But what we have been prone to do is we've accepted and swallowed an interpretation of this that was made popular in the 19th century. Okay? So if you read the late great planet Earth when you were in college, which was big when I was in college, if you wasted your time on any of the Left Behind series, okay? I say wasted your time. You have wasted your time. That is not, first, what the Catholic Church understands the end time to be. And it's not what the Bible is trying to say. It's an interpretation. So I'm trying to kind of pull away the props here to get you some fresh eyes. Revelation is, like I said, it's about all the Bible. It's always wonderful. It is wonderful. But it's wonderful if you understand what the author intended. So James mentioned during break the word rapture. The word rapture does not appear in the Bible anywhere. Now, there are biblical texts that people have selected and put together, a little from the Gospel of Luke, a little bit from Paul, and they've given it the name, the rapture. But you know what? There was no preacher, Catholic, Protestant, or Jewish, who interpreted the book this way until the 19th century. It's a new idea, as far as ideas go. It's a new idea. Now, it's won the day in conservative Protestant circles. But it is not, but it's a relatively recent thing, okay? And so I want to get to the bigger picture. Revelation is part of a whole worldview that affected Judaism and Christianity from a couple centuries before Jesus until a couple centuries after. It's a response to the unfairness and the injustice of the world that calls out for God to break in judgment, to kind of set things right. Because we've come to a determination that we can't manage it, that there's going to be no genius, no 5-year plan, like the Soviets had. There's no bill, there's no political party that is going to be able to pull this out because of human nature. So we need God to break in. So we call on God to break in. Then, with Book of Daniel, even before Daniel, this became expressed in a kind of literature that was narrative in framework, in which heavenly beings would come and convey a narrative message that could either be temporal, about here's what the future looks like, or spatial, let's go on a tour. But the message in both places is not to tell you exactly what's going to happen, but to give you confidence in the present. It's all about how do we live now. Jesus uses the same style in this chapter we just read. Actually, I don't think it's a one speech. I think it's a series of speeches that Jesus gave, because it has different topics. One topic is what's going to happen to the temple. Okay, that's already over. That's done. Kaput, huh? But Jesus talked about what he perceived was going to happen. Check on that one, Jesus. Part of it's how the church should handle its future. Be ready for persecution. Don't go off the deep end when somebody says, I am the Christ. Now is the time. There will be people who mislead you. So don't jump every time when they say jump. They're warning about persecutions from without. You'll be brought before kings and governors. You read the Acts of the Apostles, didn't you? What happened to Paul? Kings and governors. He was arraigned. So it's been this. Now you might not feel this is America's story. Well, maybe it's because you've been living on the wrong side of the tracks, or the right side of the tracks. Okay? But there are other people, other followers of Jesus who would say, we need God to break in. Because there is at root a wrongness about the world. We want God to break in. It's not meant to fire us up to burn down City Hall. It's not meant to think up some new creative plan ourselves. It's to have confidence that God is in charge of history, and he will make sure it gets to where it needs to be, leading us to live boldly even in difficult times. This weekend, we're going to read from which passage? In Acts of the Apostles. The Acts of the Apostles passage for tonight and tomorrow. The apostles are arraigned before, I'm getting this confused. I'm thinking about a couple days ago. The apostles were arraigned before the Sanhedrin. The same group that convicted Jesus. And Peter, cowardly, Jesus-denying Peter, gets in their face and says, it's better for us to obey God than men. Okay? That is the same message. We don't control the world, but how do we live? We live with a boldness because we know who's in charge of history. Again, it's not a plan for tearing down the world or a plan for building up the world. It's a plan, it's a word of confidence for us to be firm in our faith regardless what's happening around us. Okay? Who's got questions? Yes?
So you said that this kind of comes up after prophecy dies.
Yes.
So why did prophecy kind of die at Zimmer's Z, or why did that transition? You know, what?
Oh, overlaps. It overlaps.
Okay.
It overlaps. Yeah. Yeah. What are some characteristics of it? Symbols. Lots of symbols. Animals stand for nations and peoples. Numbers. Because you're talking about something you don't know. You're talking about the transcendent world. The world as God sees it. So it's not little details. It's symbols. So get used to that. Now, again, people get in trouble when they say, well, that symbol means that. Because that's being too precise. People have written, again, Great Planet Earth. Read it now. Oh, my God, what a waste of paper. What a waste of paper. Made all kinds of predictions. Didn't happen. Yeah. Yeah. So, again, so step back from the one-to-one correspondence. Well, this equals that. This is Russia. Oh, where's Russia now? This is Saddam Hussein. Oh, he's gone now. I mean, I'm just saying, people who make those kind of connections, they're adding to a long line of people who are trying to predict the future. And what did Jesus say about predicting this? He said, the angels don't know, the Son doesn't know, only the Father knows. And yet people can't stop predicting. Why? Why? Why do you think, what is it about us that makes it hard for us to take Jesus at his word and not predict the future? We want to be in control. We want to be on the inside, and you're on the outside. It's not a good thing. It's not an admirable element of the human nature. We want to be in control. We want to be on the inside. Too bad about you. So, on the yellow sheet, one last thing, and then if you've got questions, and then we'll start moving to our questions and answers. On this 10 things about the book of Revelation, Okay, number 2. Through the nearly 2,000 years of reading, there have been 3 different major ways of interpreting the book. Again, I'm sorry for the language here. Futurist. These are people who read the book as prediction, right? Making one-to-one identifications that have to be constantly changed as the predictions prove to be wrong. Generation after generation after generation after generation. And again, I say see Left Behind series. Okay? So this is a very alive way of reading Revelation. I will not be indulging you in that. Okay? 2, idealist. That takes the book of Revelation not about history, but about big ideas, about principles, about timeless truths, such as the eternal combat between good and evil and God's ultimate triumph. St. Augustine, that's what he did. St. Augustine lived in, if you know about Augustine's life, he lived in Africa when there had been a rupture in the church between the great church and a group called the Donatists. And the Donatists were fire throwers. I mean, they burned things down. And so Augustine took a big step back from anybody using Revelation to predict the future, because he saw the damage done. He says, who is the Antichrist? This is his greatest line. Who is the Antichrist? When I do not do what Jesus asks, I am the Antichrist. Okay? So Augustine totally took it out of the way, took these works out of the counting down to the end, the one world government, took it all out of that. That's not, like I said, that's damage, it's dangerous. Who is the Antichrist? When I fail to do what Jesus wants me to do. So that's the idealist approach. And again, he was reacting. And then there was the preterist. Now that's the ugly word, preterist. It's one who favors the past. This is the reading of Revelation that Kester, now Kester is familiar with all of this. He's a brainiac about this. He wrote like an 800-page Anchor Bible commentary on it. It's a wonderful commentary. And what you have is a kind of like a small version of that. Okay? It's that the book of Revelation was initially written to real people who had real problems. And he was writing to their situation, which I alluded to earlier. Pressure against them as a faith group, as Christians. Sometimes by the Jews, surely by Rome. And that he sensed more was coming. And that while it may have lessons for us, it begins by trying to understand the lessons that it had for its first readers. We've got to understand what it meant for its first readers. And then we will be able to take a message for ourselves. So, one of your homework bits, an extra homework bit, I put on the table a little half page like this. Did you pick one of those up? If not, they're still there. And you see the 7 churches, 7 letters of the churches. And then there are 2 columns, internal threats, external threats. As you read the 7 letters, they're going to be numbingly familiar, the same, and they all sound the same. But I want you to read each one. Do these people have any internal problems? That is, I mean their stomach, I mean in their community. Are there internal Christian problems? And then, are there external threats? Are there people who want to hurt them outside the church? Just make some notes for yourself. And then give them a grade. You're going to grade them on their discipleship. Are they A disciples? Are they C+ disciples? Are they F disciples? Okay? So that will help you, I think, try to get into those are the people to whom the author was originally writing. I want you to try to get into their situations. What internal problems? What external problems? How are they doing in their discipleship? Got that? Again, not going to hand it in, so it's just a worksheet for your own eyes. But I think it will help this book not be the bugaboo mystery that it is for many people. Questions? Yes, Peter.
The comment you talked about this before, but one of my professors said that every generation thinks that it's living in the end times, but if we really believe God's desire for salvation, how do we know that there's not another 10,000 years left and Christianity's in its infancy?
Correct. Did you hear that? We don't, I mean, Luke would have said, we're here for the long haul. You know, Luke, we're here for the long haul. We don't know how much, how long. It could be the next moment, my next breath. But based on my life to this point, I'd say not likely. Okay? And it could be a way, it could be, but, and again, why do people preach the end? Because it's a great way to excite people. But I'm afraid in the end, I think it honks people off. They give up eventually. Now, how many times did the boy cry wolf? Wolf, 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 wolf. And people don't even read Revelation. I don't know how many people read Revelation, but that's why we end this second year with it. Thank you for that. Other comments or questions?
All this thing is just really so much, and yet it's nothing new what they're saying, right?
In a way, exactly. It's nothing new.
Nothing new, but
It's an old thing in a new presentation.
so if it's only applied to Christians, right?
This was written for Christians.
Right. So because of their faith in God, I could see the hope that as a Christian, you know. But after a while, I just it's gonna be like, I don't know. It's a social issue actually,
Yes.
but because it's really presented to Christians, Christians feel that if they do all these things, there will be some hope and glory in the end. But we don't know what end it is.
Right, but again, I'm saying it's even more than that. It's not there's going to be hope and glory in the end. It's words for us today.
Right.
Words addressed to us today in the terms of a glorious end. Okay? Guess what we're going to do next? The quiz. I think you'll find it much easier than the last one. I hope you find it much easier than the last one.
What are you trying to say?